Why do many religions not like it when people ask for evidence? Please drop the many nonsense. Only some of the Abrahamic family religions demand belief, so only they have any value on evidence for the existence of deity. The vast majority of religions in world history have demanded practice, not belief. For example, read the Norse sagas. No mention of any belief other than Christianity. All discussion of the ancient ways ignore belief. The vast majority of religions are about practice because they don't demand belief. Practice is action. Action is physical. Physical action produces objective results. Objective results are evidence. Here comes the fun part. That evidence is never about either belief or deities because that's not demanded by those religions. Ask a practitioner of Shinto about evidence. They don't get what you're talking about. People take part in festivals. They feel better. People learn morals from myths. They might not act better, but they do know better. That's it. That's their evidence. The best-known religions that demand belief are Christianity and Islam. They have the burden to prove the existence of their specific deity because they demand people believe. Then they offer statements that aren't evidence. That's their problem, but when you spout nonsense and people call you out over it, do you like it? Take my answer here for example. You're so stuck inside Christian baggage that it never occurred to you that other religions simply aren't about what you think they are about. The people who insist on having tangible, scientific proof of God, do not understand the essence of God. In reality, no one does, but there are some things related to his essence that we need to know about. There are people in the millions who try to apply the same principles you use on a person to God. What are the sun, the mountains, and people? We are all material. What that also means, is that we are all made up of matter. We are finite, material creations, and what is the characteristic of something material? Something that is material, always has a beginning and an end. They are subject to change, and they are temporal, and all material, created things have a source from where they came from, you could say a creator. Another characteristic of something material is that they are visible to the naked eye, by the eyes of those who are material themselves, and that would be us, human beings. Lastly, they also exist under a concept of time, and they are able to be observed, and controlled, as in, controlled by an experiment. That is why science is so successful for analyzing material realities, that is the specialty of science. So, now we know that material things, beings are finite, they have a beginning and an end, they are contingent, dependent on a source, they are temporal, subject to change, they are visible to the naked eye of other material sources, which would be us. They exist under the concept of time, they can observed, and controlled, in an experiment. What people do not sometimes realize, when talking about God, or trying to ask questions, comments like these, scientific evidence of God, is that God is nothing of what I described. God has no material characteristic. He is immaterial, or not made up of any matter. Since that is the case, he is not visible to the naked eye of material human beings, who are made up of matter. Since we are material ourselves, our eyes are only accustomed and predisposed to seeing material realities, but God is not material, he is an immaterial being because he is a spirit, as is everything in the spiritual realm. Our eyes cannot see the spirit, because our eyes are only designed to see the material. That is why God is invisible, not because of imagination. If God were to somehow show himself as he really is, to us we would die on the spot. So now that we know that, what else does that mean? Well, it means that God is not temporal, he remains forever, even if the universe and humans were to disappear, not dependent on anything else. How would he be God? Cannot be controlled by experiments. Can you really be so arrogant and think you can control God in an experiment? He is outside of time, that is why he has an eternal knowledge of the past and future. Oh boy. It looks like science is gonna have a lot of difficulty analyzing something outside their criteria. God is the one who gives life to everything, literally. Everything exists solely because of him. I don't want to sound harsh, but atheists who claim that to be an atheist means to live apart from God, don't know what they're talking about. Though they reject God, God still holds them in existence at every moment, and every second. And He does this with every material, living thing. Therefore, all material things, because of all these things, are naturally dependent on a non-contingent source, and that non-contingent source would be God. This shows a natural weakness in created things, and if God was material and observable Himself, it would mean that He would also have natural weakness, and it would mean that He is dependent, and, of course, if He was any of these things, He wouldn't be God. That is why these things that we hail and revere, scientific laws, scientific methods, and scientific methods don't apply in any way to God. They are only meant for us in our material world. Why do you think that God came in a physical form 2,000 years ago? He came in the person of Jesus, so that His material creation could get a glimpse of who God was, since there was no way He would be observable without taking a physical form. That is why He gave instructions on how to follow Him correctly. That is why He established a church to guide people who would be confused about Him when He would no longer be around us in a physical form. He gave us these things, so that we would know. He became visible for us so that we might truly see Him. And to know God, and see Him, we must listen to the instructions He left us so we could see Him. That is how we discern and come to know God, through the church He established. Not the scientific method, which applies only to the material universe. There is the concept of the divine being a spiritual as opposed to physical manifestation. How does one provide earthly evidence for that which has not earthly form? Likewise, there is the concept that the universe and all contained therein is itself the physical manifestation of that divine entity. Ultimately, it boils down to an issue of faith, much as a scientist may conceive of a concept, a hypothesis with the faith that with time the evidence will be discovered and verified. While the scientist has some evidence, that is phenomena upon which the hypothesis is based, they nevertheless have some faith in that hypothesis, spurring them on to developing and testing. So some assert that their feeling of the divine presence is all that they can offer. But frankly, that's okay. The issue is when organized religion, or perhaps more appropriately, when those who use religion as a mean for self-promotion, manipulating others and profit, find themselves the focus of inquiry and their faith tested, they react with an affectation of righteous indignation. Sincere faith need not justify itself in the manner that science must. They exist in their own respective purviews.